Thank you for the like. Okay, so we're in the book of Job and we're in chapters 21 to 26 so far. Yeah. Um, so I'll just do a recap of um, what we read last time and where we left off, and then I'll just get into the reading of those chapters. So a couple of things happened when we was reading in Job, right? So Job was telling his friends they are not good comforters, right? So in the beginning, Job's friends came to comfort Job because they saw his suffering and just wanted to help him through it. But they became a bit judgmental and they became insensitive to his suffering. So, this is Job telling his friends again that they are not good at comforting him through his suffering. And then we see Job talk again about his life, how, about having hope in his situation. Hi, Sai. Thank you for coming through. Hope you are good. Then we see Job. Then we see Job talk about his situation again, and is there going to be hope? Then we see Bildad came. Then we see Bildad come again. And he's explaining to Job, God punishes the wicked. So his friends think that Job is going through the suffering because he has sinned, he's done something wrong, and that he needs to repent, and then God will forgive him, and then he'll be out of his suffering, right? Same with Zophar, right? He talks about the suffering of the wicked. Basically, God doesn't make no mistakes in punishing the wicked. But Zophar is just seeing it straightforward, and he's not seeing what other things could be going on, right? So all of Job's friends have their opinions of what they think Job's suffering is, right? But none of them really truly know why. Hey Frankie Pro, thank you for coming through. None of them really truly know why Job is suffering, right? And it's not because he has sinned, right? It's not because he has sinned. So this is chapters 21 to 26 in the book of Job. So this is Job replying back to Zophar, right? So Zophar had basically said, the wicked suffer, you've done wrong, basically. So this is Job's reply back to him. That's where we left off on. Job chapter 21. Then Job replied, listen carefully to my words. Let this be the consolation you give me. Bear with me while I speak, and after I have spoken, mock on. Right? So Job is saying, hear what I've got to say, right? And after I've spoken, you can carry on, telling me about how God punishes the wicked. You can carry on telling me all these things, right? Which Job has already said to his friends, right? I think it was Eliphaz. I already know these things, why are you telling me? It's kind of like patronizing you. You're telling me something that I know, right? Is my complaint directed to a human being? Why should I not be impatient? Look at me and be appalled. Clap your hands over your mouth. When I think about this, I am terrified. Trembling seizes my body. Why do the wicked live on, growing old and increasing in power? They see their children established around them, their offsprings before their eyes. Their homes are safe and free from fear. The rod of God is not on them. Their bulls never fail to breed. Their cows calve and do not miscarry. They send forth their children as a flock. Their little ones dance about. They sing to the music of the tambourine and lyre. They make merry to the sound of the pipe. They spend their years in prosperity and go down to the grave in peace. So I want to see what it says in the ESV. 21:30. So, right, I'm reading from the NIV version, but when it says grave, I'm just going to go to the ESV because it says Sheol, right? So Sheol's basically where the grave, right? You go to the grave and, you're not going to hell if you go to the grave, right? So it says it goes down to the grave in peace, right? In the ESV, it says they spend their days in prosperity and in peace they go down to Sheol, right? So they don't go to hell, they go to Sheol, the grave, right? That's our resting place. That's our resting place until Jesus comes back. Hey Ron, thank you for coming through. I hope you are good. Hope you are good, Ron. Yet they say to God, leave us alone. We have no desire to know your ways. Who is the mighty that we should serve him? What would we gain by praying to him? But their prosperity is not in their own hands, so I stand aloof from the plans of the wicked. Yet how often is the lamp of the wicked snuffed out? How often does calamity come upon them? The fate God allots in his anger. How often are they like straw before the wind, like chaff swept away by a gale? It is said, God stores up the punishment of the wicked for their children. Let him repay the wicked so that they themselves will experience it. Let their own eyes see their destruction. Let them drink the cup of the wrath of the Almighty. For what do they care about the families they leave behind when their allotted months comes to an end? Can anyone teach knowledge to God, since he judges even the highest? One person dies in full vigor, completely secure and at ease, well nourished in the body, bones rich with marrow. Another dies in bitterness of soul, never having enjoyed anything good. Side by side they lie in the dust, and worms cover them both. I know full well what you are thinking, the schemes by which you would wrong me. You say, where now is the house of the great, the tents where the wicked live? Have you ever questioned those who travel? Have you paid no regard to their accounts, that the wicked are spared from the day of calamity? So you see, Job thinks, the wicked don't get punished, right? And the wicked escape, and they basically get easy life, while people who do the right thing, who walk the righteous path, right, don't, they get suffering, they get all of these things coming their way, they don't get no peace, they don't get this, right? But the wicked, they get everything at ease, their life seems to be, a walk in the park, while we are out here suffering and fighting battles, um, uh, yeah, he's feeling some kind of way. Exactly, Si. He's feeling some kind of way, but it's just not that. As he said, the wicked and the righteous will go to the same place, which is the grave, right? That they were delivered from the day of wrath. Who denounces their conduct to their face? Who repays them for what they have done? They are carried to the grave, and watch is kept over their tombs. The soil in the valley is sweet to them. Everyone follows them after. Everyone follows after them, and a countless throng goes before them. So how can you console me with your nonsense? Nothing is left of your answers but falsehood. Right? So, you know, again, Job is telling his friends, you know, you're accusing me of wrongdoing. What you're doing is false, right? You accuse me of something that you don't even know, right? It's false. So if you don't know, why are you accusing me? Why not leave it up to God to be the judge, right? If you think that I've done something wrong, let God deal it how He sees fitting, right? Um, you know, and you know, in the end, we all have to leave this earth and come upon judgment. So it's not just the wicked, right? It's not just the righteous. We all have, right? So no one's, you know, um, better than no one in that sense, because we all come to the same fate, right? We all come to the same fate. It's just that, you know, we'll be judged when Jesus comes back. The storm couldn't take me out. Oh, there was a storm? Well, I'm glad you're safe, Rome. I'm glad you're safe. Rich or poor? Sorry, that's my notes. Eliphaz, chapter 22. Then Eliphaz the Temanite replied, "Can a man be of benefit to God? Can even a wise person benefit him? What pleasure would it give the Almighty if you were righteous? What would he gain if your ways were blameless? Is it for your pity that he rebukes you and brings charges against you? Is not your wickedness great? Are not your sins endless? You demanded security from your relatives for no reason. You stripped people of their clothing, leaving them naked. You gave no water to the weary, and you withheld food from the hungry. Though you were a powerful man owning land, and an honored man living on it, and you sent widows away empty-handed and broke the strength of the fatherless. That is why snares are all around you, why sudden peril terrifies you. Why is it so dark that you cannot see, and why a flood of water covers you? Is not God in the heights of heaven, and see how lofty the highest stars? Yet you say, what does God know? Does he judge through such darkness? Thick clouds veil him, so he does not see us as he goes about in the vaulted heavens. Will ye keep to the old path that the wicked have trod? They were carried off before their time, their foundations washed away by a flood. They say to God, leave us alone. What can the Almighty do to us? Yet it was He who filled their houses with good things. So I stand aloof from the plans of the wicked. The righteous see their ruin and rejoice. The innocent mock them, saying, surely our foes are destroyed, and fire devours their wealth. Submit to God and be at peace with him. In this way, prosperity will come to you. Accept instruction from his mouth and lay up his words in your heart. If you return to the Almighty, you will be restored. If you remove wickedness far among your tent and assign your nuggets to the dust, your gold of Ophir to the rocks in the ravines, then the Almighty will be your gold, the choicest silver for you. Surely then you'll find delight in the Almighty, and will lift up your face to God. You will pray to him, and he will hear you, and you will fulfill your vows. What you decide on will be done, and light will shine on your ways. When people are brought low, and you say lift them up, then he will save the downcast. He will deliver even one who is not innocent, who will be delivered through the cleanness of your hands. Chapter 23. Then Job replied, even today my complaint is bitter. His hand is heavy in spite of my groaning. If only I knew where to find him. If only I could go to his dwelling. I would state my case before him and fill my mouth with arguments. I would find out what he would answer me and consider what he would say to me. Would he vigorously oppose me with great power? No, he would not press charges against me. The upright can establish their innocence before him, and there I will be delivered forever from my judge. But if I go to the east and he is not there, if I go to the west, I do not find him. When he's at work in the north, I do not see him. When he turns to the south, I catch no glimpse of him. But he knows the way that I take. When he has tested me, I shall come forth as gold. My feet have closely followed his steps. I have kept his ways without turning aside. I have not departed from the commandments of his lips. I have treasured the words of his mouth more than my daily bread. But he stands alone, and who can oppose him? He does whatever he pleases. He carries out his decree against me, and many such plans he still has in store. This is why I'm terrified before him. When I think of all this, I fear him. God has made my heart faint. The Almighty has terrified me. Yet I am not silenced by the darkness, by the thick darkness that covers my face. So you see, Job, they are saying good things, but using their words, bludgeoning Job instead of comfort. Right? Exactly. They'd be so like harsh and insensitive about what's going on. It's just, this is what's happened. This is what you got to do, and your life will be fixed. Right? That's what they're basically saying. Instead of trying to comfort him, because they don't know what this season is about, right? And being a good friend, they are judging him, right? They are judging him, and he's already been judged, tested already, right? And on top of that, you've got your friends judging you, right? So you can imagine it's a really tough time for him, and even in this time, even though he's going back and forth, he still acknowledges God is the Almighty. He still acknowledges God is holy, right? He still acknowledges these things, that it's only by God's hands that these things can happen, right? And so far, like, you haven't heard Job curse God or reject God or turn God away, right? Even in his suffering, right, even though he's trying to argue his case, right, in which sometimes we just can't argue a case, right? We just can't fathom what's going on, right? He's trying to argue his case, but he still acknowledges that God is Almighty, right? He still has the fear of the Lord, right? Chapter 24. Why does the Almighty not set times for judgment? Why must those who know him look in vain for such days? There are those who move boundary stones. They pass the flocks they have stolen. They drive away the orphan's donkey and take the widow's oxen pledge. They thrash the needy from the path and force all the poor of the land into the hiding. Right, so Job is talking about what the wicked does. The wicked does all this, the wicked does all that, right? But there's gonna become a time where God will judge, for what you did, right? So it may not be now, it may not be like in a year's time, but he will get there, right? So while you're worried about what the wicked are doing and the wicked get away and right, it takes your focus of just following Christ, because you're thinking too much, oh well, that person's doing this and they're getting away with this, and I'm here and I'm being righteous and I'm walking the right path and I'm doing this all right, so why am I suffering, right? And you get into this headspace like Job. You get into like, why, you know, I need more hope in my life. Why am I going through this? Why are they not going through this? It looks like they're having an easy life, but we just don't know, really, do we? We just don't know. People make things look good, right, on the outside, but we just really don't know. So instead of worrying about the wicked and what the wicked does, and you know whether they will get punished, you know, let leave that in God's hands, right? Because God will avenge those, right? He will do what he needs to do. Instead of worrying about the wicked, just worry on following Christ, making sure that you're keeping to his commandments, making sure that you know you are doing everything you can possibly in his name, right? Because you keep going back and forth like Job is doing here, and again, the picture is much bigger than us. We just don't know what is going on, right? There's things that we can't see and we just don't know, so we just can't keep speculating. We have to live in faith, right? We have to live in faith. We have to live in trust. God is working on us. Exactly, so. Like wild donkeys in the desert, the poor go about their labor of foraging work. The wasteland provides food for their children. They gather fodder in the fields and glean in the vineyards of the wicked. Lacking clothes, they spend the night naked. They have nothing to cover themselves in the cold. They are drenched by mountain rains hug hug the rocks for lack of shelter. The fatherless child is snatched from the breast. The infant of the poor is seized for a debt. Lacking clothes, they go about naked. They carry the sheaves, but still go hungry. They crush olives, making the terraces they tread, the wine presses, yet suffer thirst. The groans of the dying rise from the city, and the souls of the wounded cry out for help. But God charges no one with wrongdoing. These there are those who rebel against the light, who do not know its ways or stay in its paths. When daylight is gone, the murderer rises up, kills the poor and the needy, and in the night steals forth like a thief. The eye of the adulterer watches for dusk. He thinks no eye will see me, and if he keeps his face concealed in the dark, thieves break into the house. By day, they shut themselves in. They want nothing to do with the light. For all of them, midnight is their morning. They make friends with the terrors of the darkness. Right? They have no problem being comfortable in their sin, right? They have no problem doing that. But when it comes to actually doing something right, they just can't do it, right? They just can't do it. You know, sorry. For all, yet they are foam on the surface of the water. Their portion of the land is cursed, so that no one goes to the vineyards. As heat and drought snatch away the melted snow, so the grave snatches away those who have sinned. The womb forgets them, the worm feasts on them. The wicked are no longer remembered, but are broken like a tree. They prey on the barren and the childless woman. And to the widow they show no kindness. But God drags away the mighty by his power. Though they become established, they have no assurance of life. He may let them rest in a feeling of security, but his eyes are on their ways. For a little while they are exalted, and then they are gone. They are brought low and gathered up like all others. They are cut off like ears of corn. If this is not so, who can prove me false and reduce my words to nothing? Chapter 25. Then Bildad the Shuhite replied, Dominion and awe belongs to God. He established order in the height of heaven. Can his forces be numbered? On whom does his light not rise? How then can a mortal be righteous before God? How can one born of woman be pure? If even the moon is not bright and the stars are not pure in his eyes, how much less is a mortal who is but a maggot, a human being who is only a worm? Chapter 26. Then Job replied, how you have helped the powerless, how you have saved the arm that is feeble. What advice you have offered to one without wisdom, and what great insight you have displayed. Who has helped you utter these words, and whose spirit spoke from your mouth? The dead are in deep anguish, those beneath the waters and all that live in them. The realm of the dead is naked before God. Destruction lies uncovered. He spreads out the northern skies over the empty space. He suspends the earth over nothing. He wraps up the waters in his clouds, yet the clouds do not burst under their weight. He covers the face of the full moon, spreading its clouds over it. He marks out the horizon on the faces of the waters for a boundary between light and darkness. The pillars of the heavens quake, aghast at his rebuke. By his power he churned up the sea. By his wisdom he cut Rahab to pieces. By his breath the skies became fair. His hand pierced the gliding serpent, and these are but the outer fringe of his works. How faint the whisper we hear of him. Who then can understand the thunder of his power? Right, so Job's basically saying to his friends, how have you helped? How have you helped? You haven't really helped in this time. You haven't really offered me any wisdom, right? This is really coming off your own understanding. But again, we've seen in the beginning, this is a test, and Satan accused Job before God, right? And said, if I take away all your Job stuff, how faithful will he still be to you? Will he not curse you, right? And the friends just are still not getting it, right? The friends are still not getting it. They still think it's very simple, right? They don't understand everything that's going on. So it's just to be kind when people are going through a season of suffering, right? It's just to be kind to other people, because we just actually don't know what's going on. We just don't know what God is refining us for, what God is giving us to do for his glory, right? We just don't know, right? We just have to go through the season and trust and believe what God is doing, right? And know that his plans are always better. His plans are always better. Faithful Job was rarely bothering Satan's sensibilities, right? What Satan said, well, I've been roaming fro and to. Like, he's just out here roaming, looking to accuse someone, to stand before God and say, well, look at this person. You think they're righteous, but they're not righteous. He's just roaming, right? And Job seemed to come up because he was a faithful servant, right? And Satan always does that. When he sees that you are being faithful, when he sees that you're being obedient, right? He don't like that. So he will go and accuse you, and he will keep destroying your life, right? So that you are far away from God. But Job is proving to be hanging on, right? Even through his suffering, he's proving to still hang on and endure through it, despite his friends bringing him down, despite him not knowing what is going on, why his wealth, why his family, why everything was taken away from him, right? And why his appearance is now changed the way it is. He's still going through it. He's still going through it. He hasn't said be done with all of this, be done with God, right? He's still going through it, right? And that's what we have to do. We still have to go through it. And yes, we're going to ask questions sometimes. Sometimes we're going to go back and forth, right? But we still got to be faithful, right? We still got to make sure that we're being obedient, even in times of suffering, right? Not just in the good times when God is blessing us, right? But also in times of suffering. So I'm going to leave it there. I'll be back tomorrow to do a devotional. Yeah, I'll be back tomorrow to do a devotional. I do a Psalm devotional every Sunday, so I'll be in the book of Psalms tomorrow. And then we'll be back next week with we'll be back in the book of Job next week. Love you too, Si. Thank you for all that came out. Thank you for the likes. I really, really appreciate. Actually, get into the verses, the verse chapters that we're reading, right? When we're doing this stuff, get into it yourself and read the word and understand it for yourself and let the Holy Spirit help and guide you, right? So that you can understand as well. So, just make sure that you're doing that for yourself as well, because God might give you something different from me, but we should still all be on one accord. So yeah, I'll see you tomorrow if you can make it for the devotional. If not, I'll see you next week. And thank you all that came out again. Bye. You can get